The night was restless over New York City as Flight 709 prepared for departure. The rain tapped rhythmically against the windows of the terminal, blurring the glowing lights of the runway. Passengers shuffled forward, boarding with weary faces and heavy luggage, never imagining the secrets this journey held. Inside the cockpit, Captain William Hayes sat in his seat, calm and composed, while his co-pilot Eric Morrison reviewed the flight plan. The two men exchanged quiet words, their conversation routine. Everything was as it should be: checklists, weather reports, and the comfort of repetition that flying demanded. In the cabin, people settled into their seats. Businessmen loosened their ties, a mother hushed her crying infant, and a young couple whispered about their vacation ahead. But among them, in seat 14A, sat an elderly man with a faded photograph clutched tightly in his trembling hands. He stared at it as though it contained the weight of his life, whispering to himself words no one else could hear. When the engines roared and the plane lifted into the sky, passengers relaxed. Drinks were served, laughter rose, and the calmness of a long flight settled in. Above the clouds, the world seemed far away, just as it always did. But destiny rarely gives warnings. 2 hours into the flight, Captain Hayes excused himself, leaving the cockpit momentarily. He walked down the aisle, nodding to passengers. Halfway through, his steps faltered. His hand gripped the edge of a seat. His chest tightened. Within seconds, he collapsed onto the floor. Chaos erupted. Passengers screamed. Flight attendants rushed forward, calling desperately for a doctor. The intercom crackled with co-pilot Morrison's shaky voice trying to calm everyone. In the cockpit, alarms began to flash as turbulence rattled the jet. One man could not control it alone. And then, when fear was at its highest, she appeared. A woman stood at the cockpit door. No one had seen her board. No one knew where she had come from. She wore a worn pilot's uniform from another era, her expression calm but commanding. Without hesitation, she walked past the stunned crew and slid into the captain's seat. Her hands danced over the controls, steady and sure. The plane obeyed as if it recognized her. Morrison stared in disbelief, stammering, "Who are you? You can't be here." She ignored the question, her voice firm and precise as she gave instructions. She was no stranger to the skies. She was born for them. Passengers watched in awe, whispers spreading like wildfire. Some swore they recognized her. Others believed she was a ghost. The elderly man in seat 14A dropped his photograph onto the floor. In it was her face, the same woman now saving them. Her name was Captain Amelia Hart. 7 years earlier, she had been declared dead after her aircraft vanished over the Atlantic. But here she was, alive, or something beyond life, flying through the storm like she had never left the skies. The Boeing 777 shuddered as lightning lit up the windows. But inside the cockpit, there was control. There was confidence. Amelia Hart's presence filled the space like a force of nature. Her calm voice guided Morrison as though she had been sitting beside him all along. "You'll take the radio," she instructed. "Stay focused." "Trust me?" Morrison obeyed, his disbelief growing with each passing second. Every pilot knew her name. Amelia Hart was a legend. She had shattered records, inspired generations, and then vanished into thin air. Investigators searched oceans, families grieved. The world declared her gone. But now her hands gripped the controls, her eyes fixed on the horizon. In the cabin, passengers clung to their seats. Fear slowly gave way to wonder. The elderly man whispered through trembling lips. "She promised me once. She said no one would die on her flight, not while she was captain." His words spread through the rows, a strange comfort in the chaos. Morrison finally asked the question burning inside him. How are you here? "You died. Everyone knows you died." Amelia's eyes flickered but remained fixed on the storm ahead. Death is not always what it seems. Sometimes the world buries stories it doesn't understand. Her answer chilled him. Was she alive all these years, hidden away? Or had she crossed some unseen threshold, neither living nor gone, returning only when fate demanded it? The storm battered them, turbulence jolting the cabin. Passengers cried out, but Amelia never flinched. Her voice cut through the chaos with unwavering authority. "Hold steady. Trust the plane. It wants to fly." And it did. Slowly, the shuddering eased. The aircraft pierced through the last of the storm and emerged into a vast sea of calm sky. The cabin fell silent. The passengers, pale and exhausted, looked around as though they had witnessed something impossible. In that silence, Morrison glanced at her again. She looked exactly as the photographs had shown her 7 years ago. Not a day older, not a wrinkle, not a change, as though time itself had frozen her. Hours passed. The plane soared westward, the storm behind them. But the questions grew heavier. Who was she now? A woman pulled back from the grave? A spirit bound to the skies? Or something else entirely? When the lights of Los Angeles twinkled in the distance, Amelia finally spoke again. When we land, there will be questions. You must not answer them. The truth is not meant to be explained. It is only meant to be lived. Morrison's chest tightened. He wanted to know more, to understand, but her tone carried finality. She wasn't going to explain. She wasn't meant to. The descent was flawless, smoother than anything Morrison had ever experienced. Passengers clapped and cheered, some weeping, others laughing in relief. The terror of the storm faded into a single truth. They were alive because of her. As emergency crews rushed aboard to tend to Captain Hayes, Amelia quietly rose from her seat. Morrison turned to her, desperate to hold on to her presence. "Wait," he said, his voice almost breaking. "If you leave now, no one will believe me. No one will believe any of us." She looked at him, her gaze both kind and unshakable. "Belief is not what matters. Survival is." And then she was gone. By the time airport security entered the cockpit, the captain's chair was empty. There was no record of her on the passenger list, no trace of her on the boarding cameras. It was as though she had never been there. The passengers insisted. They told reporters, investigators, anyone who would listen. They described her uniform, her face, her voice. The elderly man showed them the photograph he had carried for years. Amelia Hart smiling in her pilot's jacket. It was the same woman who had saved them. News channels exploded with the story. Some dismissed it as hysteria, a mass illusion born from fear. Experts claimed stress and turbulence could create false memories. But others weren't so sure. Too many witnesses, too many details. Morrison remained silent in public, but in his heart, he knew what he had seen. Weeks later, he received a package. No return address. Inside was a single note in elegant handwriting. "The skies never forget their own." Alongside it lay a flight pin, old and tarnished, the initials AH etched into it. He clutched it with trembling hands, his breath shallow. She had been real. She had been there. The world would argue, deny, and forget, but he would not. And for the passengers of Flight 709, the memory would never fade. They knew the truth. When the captain collapsed and all hope was gone, Amelia Hart appeared in the cockpit. 7 years after the world declared her dead, she returned to the skies. Not for fame, not for glory, but for the lives of those who needed her. Perhaps she was alive, hidden all this time. Perhaps she was something beyond life, bound to the heavens she loved. No one could ever say for certain. But legends are not meant to be explained. They are meant to be remembered. And Amelia Hart became more than a story. She became a ghost of the skies, a savior who proved that sometimes death cannot ground those who were born to fly.